8 out of 10 is the initial score I gave Samurai Champloo upon watching it for the first time. It was a solid samurai anime with great music, but nothing more than that. After rewatching it for the first time as part of my Japanese learning with native audio, the whole show took on a new meaning for me. Champloo is about vagabonds carving their own unique identity in an environment desperately trying to defeat them. Although luck doesn't always turn out in their favor and a lot of their goals end up in failures, it's important to learn from those experiences and move on. In a monolithic system where people are surviving by hurting each other, you can fight by being unique, which is a great message I feel everyone should hear at least once. One other obvious thing is when you're watching an anime in sub, your eyes are constantly focused on the bottom, which leads you to not fully appreciate a lot of the scenery and sequences in the show. Samurai Champloo is really fucking atmospheric, something I knew but understood with greater detail upon my rewatch. Although it doesn't have the same glamour as, let's say, Cowboy Bebop, it still has that distinct Watanabe style plus the godly music of Nujabes, which to this day has proven lo-fi plus samurai is an immaculate combination. If you've been putting this one off after watching Bebop or Space Dandy, definitely give it a shot. I'm not promising it'll be better than those shows, but you'll certainly remember it for a long time. Next up I saw Minari, which was fantastic. Like, Steven Yeun in this artsy setting, and there's also a cool ass grandma. That's amazing. Yeah, not much to say about this one, just a pretty solid movie that brought me back memories of my also Asian grandma who packs nothing but food in her purse and randomly gives you a bunch of cash for some reason. The theme of family and always sticking by them is pretty strong in this one, and I appreciate it for it. And there's Steven. When you think of heroes, the first thing that pops into your mind is probably badass stoic characters who save those in need from forces of evil. I am also no exception in this, so picture me watching Gurren Lagann, and this is the hero I'm presented with.
We had allowed ourselves to just give up that day, then we all would have died.
Simon, are you in there? I brought you some dinner.
Buddha, not now. I'm exhausted.
For sure, other stories sometimes depict their heroes in a sad and depressing state, but none that I've seen have done it to this extent. Gurren Lagann, while hilarious and wacky most of the time, truly shows the horror of losing a loved one, of fear of not being enough, and it's such a powerful show because of that. I dropped this anime on episode 4 a few years ago, but coming back to it now, something about just abandoning everything and setting out on a completely new adventure stuck with me, which now I realize isn't that special, but whatever. All the characters are lovable, well written, and most importantly, believable. Although Simon deals with 99% of his problems by shouting and growing a drill, when you have the main protagonist cooped up in his room for a bunch of episodes doing nothing because he is sad, you know you're dealing with a well thought out plot. Like seriously, so many shows have the main character's best friend dying or their family gets wiped out or something, and after a quick crying sesh, they're completely back to normal and start beating up bad guys. Like, no, human emotions don't work like that. Although I'm not that bothered with this whole character trope, it was really refreshing seeing the show taking the time to fully flesh out its characters even in the worst of time. It did this so well that we've talked this much, and I haven't even mentioned how awesome the mecha battles are. Although fake deaths are an issue throughout, some of the earlier battles lack that intensity, and by the end, the way the main characters were bending the space-time continuum every goddamn second would give every physicist a heart attack. They're still hype as hell, with some even leading me to screaming at the top of my lung. Seriously, like, what show can you find where the mechas use literal galaxies as boomerangs? Exactly. Overall, coming up as husbando period. I was watching the new Super Bunny Hub video the other day, and he said something really interesting.
It's a Hotline Miami style takedown of video game violence while gratuitously indulging in video game violence.
Hotline Miami, 9 years after its release, was still being used to describe new video games. Still, it was inspiring, tons of pieces of art, but none have even come close to its greatness. For the longest time, I was battling the idea of which game is truly the best I have ever played in my life, and with my fourth or possibly fifth playthrough, I found that answer. Hotline Miami 2 is the closest we can get to video game perfection as humanly possible. No matter how much I love MGS3, the game done by these two amazing people has the best depiction of violence I've seen in games. Don't get me wrong, the first game is also one of my favorites, but while that was more dumb fun, Hotline Miami 2 reaches into your deepest feelings and presents them to you, something I've seen very few games even hope to attempt. It's not a fun game most of the time. It's frustrating, it makes you question your actions, and it's really vague at times, but it's that beautiful serenity after finishing a level that strikes a chord with you, even though you might not understand it, which for each person could mean totally different things. I can sit here all day and talk about the absolute beauty of the visuals, soundtrack, and the ending of this immaculate game, but the video done by Ovandal, I hope I pronounced that right, does far better than I can and goes through tons of little details I hadn't noticed before, so be sure to watch his video, link in the description. Like most people, having not understood anything about Fooly Cooly, I hopped onto YouTube, opening a lot of different videos in hopes of gaining a little understanding of it, but oddly enough stopped all of them less than halfway through. Fooly Cooly is an artistic masterpiece. It is an artistic piece packed to the brim with a man's creative vision, one that I feel like I'm not fully ready to experience yet. Whether that be commentary on the format of anime versus manga, fourth wall breaking, or different styles of animation, this charming 6-episode madness doesn't overstay its welcome and constantly surrounds you in this sea of ambiguity and expects you to draw a meaning out of it. For me personally, Fooly Cooly was a beautiful tale of self-discovery, which reminded me a lot of Serial Experiments Lane. Not in the context of the anime itself, but in regards that I feel both need to be watched multiple times in different parts of life for you to fully grasp what they're about or what they mean to you personally. Story complexity aside, I feel like Fooly Cooly is really easy to enjoy regardless, thanks to its amazing soundtrack and visuals. If you've been looking for a short anime to binge in one sitting, definitely check it out. After that, I found out that libraries exist, so I went ahead and got myself a copy of Fondalee's Jade War, which was fan-fucking-tastic. Generally, I like my entertainment to be as engaging as possible, that's why I prefer video games over anime, after that manga, and right at the bottom, books. This doesn't mean I dislike them or anything like that, but if there was a Jade War game, are you fucking kidding me? I would pre-order that shit day one, so it's a really huge compliment when I say I cried reading this thing, and I'm not exaggerating at all. The first book was like, okay, that was a pretty good crime thriller, and then Jade War was like, holy fucking shit, what the hell is happening? Can I marry Hilo? He's a character in the story who is a man, and I'm straight. But in all seriousness, seeing Fondalee improve her writing so much in just a span of years is nothing short of fascinating, and with Jade Legacy just around the corner, I'm thrilled to see what's gonna happen next. Oh shit, I forgot to talk about the story. But it's good. Lastly, I finished Children of Morta, and I want to thank Amir Hussein Fasihi, the head of Deadmate Studios, for providing me with the game code. So before we talk about this game, I need to give you guys a bit of a backstory. You see, Persian games kinda suck. Seriously, as long as I can remember, Persian games have either been shameless rehashes of other popular titles, mindless cash grabs, or downright insane. Half of them don't even work. Like the game you're seeing on the screen right now, Shabgar, I bought it 2 times and I still couldn't install the damn thing on my computer. I like how it sounds. This isn't to disrespect any Persian game developers or anything, more power to them, it's just my personal experience with them have been mostly negative. There have been some decent ones over the years, but from pretty much every single one of them I've played, none stick out in my mind. So when I say Children of Morta is one of the best games I've played this year, that's really saying something. The story is, there's this like, well, who's Morta? I still don't know who's Morta. Wait a minute. Oh, the mountain is Morta. Oh, okay. I mean, the story sucks anyways. It doesn't matter. Basically, there's corruption, darkness, and you have to defeat them, blah 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 blah. Where the game shines, though, are characters, specifically character interactions. Almost every time you come back from the dungeon to this really cozy and Persian-inspired home, you're greeted with cute little interactions between the family members and gradually learn more about them. This unfortunately doesn't carry out to the gameplay, as it's really easy to stick to your favorite characters like my boy Joey and Linda. The game goes and strives to make you pick between different members of the family, and a pawn, which is not a member of the family, but whatever, with its rest system, but it still didn't function well and I barely played as the other characters. The whole game itself, especially the gameplay and UI, has this really jank feeling, like it needed more time in the oven. Having come from Hades, which is the definitive roguelike experience, the whole power-up system and perks didn't really make any sense to me, like hell. I only found out towards the end of the game that there was a completely different level up menu for spells, and the gameplay itself, albeit addicting, lacks depth and is quite shallow with simple attacks and lackluster enemies. And that's why it took me so long to play it, more than 2 years in fact. I was so burnt out of giving a chance to these lazily put together games that I didn't think I'd enjoy more, so when I saw that they were giving out game codes a few weeks ago and it had just gotten full Persian voice acting, I gave it a chance and don't regret it at all. Children of Morta, although deeply flawed in many aspects, is an amazing experience, which I think the narrator explains it a lot better than I can.
As the story comes to its conclusion, remember this. When the time spent in this land is looked back upon, when daring feats are recited along with victories and defeats, remember that it was not a tale of heroes or villains, nor of good and evil, but one of family, and above all else, a tale of love. Go now, Guardian, and never forget.